During a morning that seemed peaceful, a rich man, wearing an elegant suit, takes his wheelchair-bound 6-year-old daughter for a special outing he had promised. When the girl, afraid of heights, realizes they are dangerously approaching the edge of the cliff, with her little hands already trembling, she asks, "Dad, why are we here?" The father remains silent. His heart races when he realizes what he's doing, but still pushes the wheelchair with all his might into the abyss. He turns and flees to his luxury car while hearing the child's scream echoing through the precipice. But he didn't know that an entire herd of wild horses witnessed everything from the other side of the valley. And what these animals do in the next few seconds leaves everyone in pure shock. Before we begin, if you love animals as much as we do, subscribe now so you don't miss any moving stories. Thank you. Let's get back to our story. The wind cut like sharp razors atop the rocky cliff, carrying the harsh scent of dry earth and the distant echo of a canyon that stretched out like a hungry abyss. Mia felt every gust pierce through her thin coat, making her hands tremble as she held tightly to the arms of her wheelchair. At 6 years old, she didn't fully understand why. This special outing with her dad had brought her to a place so different from the colorful parks they used to visit. "Daddy, it's so cold up here," she murmured, her voice nearly swallowed by the deafening roar of the wind. "Can we go home?" Robert Miller didn't answer right away. His sweaty palms pushed the wheelchair ever closer to the edge of the precipice, where loose stones tumbled into nothingness. A successful entrepreneur, owner of a fortune built over decades, he carried a weight on his shoulders that no amount of money could alleviate. In the last few months, since Victoria had entered his life, everything had changed. The elegant, sophisticated woman who had promised to marry him had been clear in her demands. There was no room for imperfections in their perfect new family. "Just a little further, my love," Robert said, his voice trembling in a way Mia couldn't tell if it was from the cold or something deeper. "Daddy wants to show you a very special view." Mia looked down and felt her stomach churn. The abyss seemed endless, and small pebbles kept falling as the wind pushed them. Her childish hands gripped the arms of the chair even tighter, a primitive, instinct warning of danger, even if her innocent mind couldn't fully process the situation. Across the canyon, a herd of wild mustangs grazed peacefully among the sparse trees. The leader of the group, an imposing stallion with a coat as black as night, suddenly lifted his head. His ears twitched, catching something the other animals hadn't yet perceived. Beside him, a light brown mare and a young foal also stopped, eating, sensing the tension emanating from their leader. "Daddy, please, let's go," Mia insisted, her voice now filled with an urgency she herself didn't understand. "I don't like this place." Robert stopped the chair just 6 feet from the cliff's edge. His hands shook uncontrollably as he looked at the daughter he had loved unconditionally for 6 years. How had he come to this? How had he allowed greed and shame to lead him to this unthinkable moment? Victoria had been clear. "Choose, Robert, your political career, our social standing, our future together, or this child who will forever be a reminder of your limitations." The $50 million inheritance he would receive from his father-in-law depended on his impeccable public image. A successful entrepreneur couldn't have family complications that would compromise his business and social connections. Mia, with her wheelchair and special needs, represented everything Victoria considered unacceptable in her carefully constructed life. "Mia," Robert said, his voice broken, "Daddy loves you so much. You know that, don't you?" "Of course I do, Daddy," she replied, smiling with the purity only children can maintain, even in the face of the inexplicable. "And you know I love you too, right? More than anything in the whole wide world." Those words were like daggers in Robert's heart. In the canyon below, the black stallion began to gallop toward the cliff, followed by the other horses of the herd. Something in their animal instincts had triggered a primal alarm, a sense that a tragedy was about to unfold. The entrepreneur closed his eyes for a moment, fighting an internal battle that had raged for weeks. When he opened them again, his hands were positioned behind Mia's chair, and he made the decision that would change their lives forever. Mia's scream echoed through the canyon like a lament that pierced the silence of nature. The wheelchair plummeted over the precipice, spinning wildly as the girl clung to the armrests, with all the strength her small hands could muster. The world became a blur of rock, wind, and absolute terror. Robert stood frozen at the edge of the cliff, watching in horror at the result of his decision. His legs trembled so much he could barely stand. What had he done? His daughter's scream still reverberated in his ears, mixing with the sound of the wind and the echo of the rocks that fell with her. The fall lasted only a few eternal seconds. Mia and her chair collided violently with a rocky ledge about 50 feet below the cliff's edge. The sturdy branches of a tree growing from the rock face partially cushioned the impact, preventing her from continuing her fall to the bottom of the abyss. The chair was partially shattered, but the safety belts kept Mia strapped to the wreckage of the seat. "Help!" she cried, her voice hoarse and desperate. "Daddy! Help! Help me!" Her cries were lost in the vastness of the canyon, but they did not go unnoticed by the horses galloping toward the cliff. The black stallion was the first to arrive at the top, his nostrils flaring as he caught the scent of human fear mixed with the metallic odor of blood. He positioned himself right at the edge of the precipice and looked down, immediately spotting the girl trapped among the rocks. Robert backed away from the edge, his face ashen. He had to get out of there before someone showed up. He needed to create a convincing version of the facts. But when he turned to run toward his car, he found himself surrounded by the herd of Mustangs that had silently arrived. The black stallion stood directly in his path, ears pinned back in a clear show of hostility. 6 other horses, mares, foals, and a second chestnut-colored stallion formed a semicircle around the entrepreneur, blocking all escape routes. "Get out of my way!" Robert yelled, trying to sound authoritative despite the panic in his voice. "Go on! Get!" The animals didn't move. The lead stallion let out a long, high-pitched neigh, which was immediately answered by the other members of the herd. It was as if they were communicating, collectively deciding what to do with this man who smelled of betrayal. Down below, Mia tried to get her bearings after the impact. Her head throbbed terribly, and she tasted something metallic in her mouth. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead, and her left leg was pinned beneath the wreckage of the chair. But she was alive, scared, hurt, but alive. "Daddy!" she screamed again, hoping he would come down to save her. "I'm down here! I can't get up!" The silence that followed was more terrifying than the fall itself. Mia waited, counting the seconds, but there was no answer. Only the biting wind and the distant sound of horses neighing from above. Slowly, a terrible realization began to form in her young mind. Daddy wasn't trying to save her. Robert made several attempts to get to his car, but the horses anticipated his every move. When he moved left, 2 animals blocked his path. When he tried to go right, others appeared before him. It was as if they possessed a collective intelligence, a coordination that defied everything he knew about animal behavior. "Damn animals," he muttered through gritted teeth, cold sweat dripping down his face despite the icy wind. The black stallion moved closer, its dark eyes fixed on Robert's face. There was something in that gaze the entrepreneur had never seen before in an animal. It was almost as if the horse were judging him, weighing his actions, and finding him wanting. Mia, realizing her father wasn't coming for her, began to assess her situation with the quiet determination that had always characterized her. The rocky ledge she was on was about 6 feet wide and 10 feet long. The branches of the tree that had broken her fall formed a sort of natural roof over her, offering some protection from the wind. The first night on the cliff was the longest of Mia's life. Huddled among the debris of her chair and partially sheltered by the tree branches, she watched the stars through the leaves swaying in the wind. The cold seeped into her bones, but she discovered that if she kept her hands under her armpits and curled her legs up as much as possible, she could preserve a little body heat. "Mommy," she whispered into the void, remembering the kind woman she had lost 2 years earlier in a car accident. "If you're in heaven, help me be strong." Up above, the horses kept a constant vigil. The black stallion had positioned himself right at the edge of the cliff, from where he could watch the girl and simultaneously block any attempt by Robert to get near. Throughout the night, the animals took turns, never leaving the spot unguarded. Robert finally managed to reach his car when the horses were distracted by the arrival of a startled rabbit. He sped away, hands trembling on the steering wheel, as he mentally crafted the story he would tell everyone. Mia had wandered off during their outing. He was desperately searching for her. No one could prove otherwise. Arriving home, he found Victoria filing her nails on the living room sofa, completely oblivious to the drama that had unfolded on the cliff. She looked up as he entered, immediately noticing his disheveled appearance and disturbed look. "Where is the girl?" she asked with indifference, as if referring to a lost object. She's lost," Robert lied, the words coming out with difficulty. "During our walk. I've already called the police." Victoria smiled with satisfaction. "What a shame, but perhaps it's for the best, don't you think? Now we can focus on our future without complications." Robert felt a wave of nausea at her words, but nodded silently. He had made his choice. Now he had to live with the consequences. The next morning, Mia woke up with an intense thirst and the feeling that every muscle in her body ached. The cut on her forehead had stopped bleeding, but had formed a scab that bothered her. She looked around, assessing her options. The ledge was safe, but there was no water or food. She needed to find a way to signal her presence. It was then that she heard the neighs. From above, the horses were still there. Mia felt a wave of relief and hope. If the animals remained in the area, maybe someone would notice their strange behavior and come investigate. "Hi, horses!" she shouted upwards, waving her hands. "I'm down here!" The black stallion approached the edge and looked directly at her. For a few seconds, girl and animal stared at each other in silence. Mia had the strange feeling that he understood her, that a communication was happening beyond words. During the day, she observed the horses' behavior patterns. They took turns on watch, always keeping at least 2 animals positioned to observe both the access road and the cliff where she was trapped. When other wild animals approached the area, the horses drove them away with loud neighs and aggressive movements. Mia began to realize that the horses were protecting her. It couldn't be, she thought at first. Wild animals don't do that. But as the hours passed, the evidence became undeniable. They had established a security perimeter around the cliff and were keeping constant guard. In the afternoon, Robert returned to the site in a rental car, hoping to find the cliff deserted, so he could eliminate any evidence of his presence. But the horses were still there, and when they recognized him, the black stallion let out a neigh that sounded almost like a roar of warning. Mia heard the sound of an engine up above and felt her heart race. "Help!" she screamed with all the strength she could muster. "I'm here! Help me!" Robert stopped the car at a safe distance from the horses and got out, pretending to look for clues. But when he tried to approach the edge of the cliff to check if Mia was still alive, the entire herd moved into a defensive formation, completely blocking his access. "Come out, Mia!" he yelled, trying to sound like a desperate father, in case anyone was watching. "Daddy's looking for you!" Mia heard her father's voice and felt a confusing mix of relief and suspicion. Why hadn't he come back last night? Why was he shouting from so far away? And why did the horses seem to be stopping him from getting closer? By the third day on the ledge, Mia had developed a survival routine that would impress even seasoned adults. In the morning, she collected the dew that gathered on the leaves using a piece of fabric torn from her shirt. In the afternoon, she searched for small wild berries growing among the rocks. At night, she used the tree branches to keep warm, creating a sort of natural nest. Her biggest discovery, however, had been communicating with the horses. Mia noticed that when she tapped rocks in specific sequences against the rock walls, the animals responded with organized neighs. 1, 2, 3 taps resulted in 3 neighs. 4 quick taps, followed by 2 slow ones, generated a similar response from the herd. "You understand me, don't you?" she said, smiling for the first time since the fall. "You know I'm here." The black stallion positioned himself at the edge and let out a low neigh, almost like a rumble. Mia clapped her hands and laughed, feeling, for the first time in days, that she wasn't completely alone. The horses had become her family, her protectors, her only friends in that desolate place. Meanwhile, in town, Robert was facing an informal interrogation by the private investigators he had hired. Sitting in his luxurious office, he tried to maintain his composure as 2 men in dark suits asked questions about Mia's disappearance. "Mr. Miller," said the lead investigator, a thin man with a grey mustache, "are you sure you don't remember any other details from the day your daughter disappeared?" "I've told you everything," Robert replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We went for a drive. She wanted to get out of the car to see the view, and when I turned back, she was gone. I searched for hours before calling you." The second investigator, younger and with penetrating eyes, jotted down every word in a notebook. "It's strange that we haven't found any trace of her in the area you indicated. No wheelchair tracks, no torn clothing on bushes." "Maybe someone took her," Robert suggested. "Trying to deflect attention. A kidnapping. I'm a wealthy man. I'd be a natural target." The investigators exchanged a look. They were being paid to find Mia, but something about the father's behavior didn't sit right with them. Still, they were well paid to follow orders, not to question their employer. On the cliff, Mia had made an important discovery. Using a long branch, she managed to reach her school backpack, which had fallen a few feet below during the accident. Inside, she found a small mirror, a few mints, and most importantly, a red marker. "Now I can make signals," she said, to herself, starting to write "help" in large letters on a smooth, light-colored rock. She positioned the rock so it would be visible to anyone looking from above, then used the mirror to reflect sunlight whenever she heard noises from the road. The horses watched her efforts with growing interest. The light brown mare, whom Mia had named Hope, carefully made her way a few feet down the steep slope to get closer to her. It was as if she wanted to show support and encouragement. During the afternoon, a delivery truck passed by on the road that skirted the canyon. Mia quickly grabbed the mirror and began flashing sunlight toward the vehicle, creating intermittent glints. The driver, a middle-aged man named John, noticed the strange reflections coming from the cliff. He stopped his truck and got out, shielding his eyes with his hand to see better. It was then that he saw the horses positioned unusually at the edge of the precipice. John knew the area well and knew that wild horses rarely stayed in one place for so long, especially in such organized groups. "That's weird," he muttered, grabbing a pair of binoculars he always kept in the cab. Through the lenses, he could see the word "help" written on the rock and a small human figure waving desperately from the rocks below. John's heart pounded. There was a child trapped on the cliff. He immediately grabbed his cell phone and called 911, reporting his discovery with precise details about the location. "There's a little girl trapped on a ledge at Devil's Ridge," he said urgently. "She wrote 'help' on a rock and she's waving." Looks like she's been down there for days. Mia saw the man on the phone and began to scream and wave with even more energy. The horses also realized something important was happening. The black stallion positioned himself even more visibly, as if wanting to draw attention to the emergency. Within 20 minutes, sirens began to echo down the road. A rescue team was approaching, guided by John's precise information. Mia felt tears of relief stream down her face. Finally, after 3 terrifying days, someone had found her. Robert, in his office, received a call that made his blood run cold. "Mr. Miller, we've found your daughter. She's alive, but trapped on the cliff. Rescue teams are on their way." The rescue operation at Devil's Ridge attracted a crowd of onlookers and professionals. Firefighters, paramedics, police, and journalists gathered at the top of the cliff, all impressed by the complexity of the situation. Mia was trapped on a ledge 50 feet down, in a position that made the rescue extremely delicate. The fire captain, an experienced man named Davis, assessed the situation through binoculars. "It's a little girl," he reported to his team. "She appears to be conscious and moving. We'll need to rappel down and use a special stretcher to bring her up safely." Mia watched all the activity above with a mixture of relief and anxiety. There was finally hope. But when she saw her father arriving at the scene, a strange feeling twisted in her stomach. Robert ran toward the edge of the cliff with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. "Mia! My daughter!" he shouted theatrically. "Thank God you're alive. Daddy looked for you everywhere." The horses reacted immediately to Robert's presence. The black stallion positioned itself between him and the edge of the cliff, its ears pinned back in a clear display of hostility. Other members of the herd moved in, forming a natural barrier that prevented Robert from getting near the rescue site. "That's strange," commented Captain Davis, observing the animal's behavior. "These horses seem to be protecting the girl, and they're clearly agitated by the father's presence." One of the paramedics, a young woman named Sarah, also noted the horse's reaction. "In my 15 years on the job, I've never seen wild animals show this kind of protective behavior toward a human. It's almost as if they know something we don't." John, the truck driver who had discovered Mia, remained on site to witness the rescue. He approached Captain Davis with a worried expression. "Captain, something's bothering me about this story. These horses have been here for at least 3 days, according to the locals. It's like they've been standing guard." "What do you mean?" asked Davis. "Well, if the girl got lost during an outing with her father, as he claims, why were the horses here before the rescue even began? And why do they seem so hostile specifically toward him?" While the adults talked above, Mia was being prepared for rescue. A firefighter specializing in rappelling, a young man named Luke, descended to the ledge carrying a special stretcher and basic medical equipment. When he reached her, he was amazed by the survival skills the little girl had shown. "Hi, Mia," said Luke. "I'm Luke. I'm here to get you. You're being so brave." "Hi, Luke," Mia replied, smiling despite her exhaustion. "The horses protected me. They're my friends now." Luke looked up, where he could see the horses intently watching every move of the operation. "Really? They took care of you?" "Yes. They didn't let anyone bad get close, and they answered when I tapped rocks. Look," Mia demonstrated, by tapping 3 rocks against the cliff face. Immediately 3 neighs echoed from the top of the cliff. Luke's jaw dropped. "That's incredible. You've actually established communication with them." As Mia was carefully placed on the stretcher and hoisted up, she continued telling her story to Luke. "Daddy brought me here for a special outing, but then he left and left me all alone. I don't know why." Those words made Luke frown. The version the father had told the firefighters was that the girl had gotten lost during their walk, not that he had intentionally left her. There was a major discrepancy in their accounts. When Mia finally reached the top of the cliff, she was immediately surrounded by paramedics and police. Robert tried to approach, but the horses maintained their defensive formation, preventing him from getting near his daughter. "Mia, my love!" he yelled from a distance. "Daddy was so worried. You got lost and I looked everywhere." Mia looked at her father with a confused expression. "But Daddy, didn't you bring me here? You pushed my chair right up to the edge and then She's confused from the trauma," Robert interrupted quickly, addressing the police officers. "Children sometimes create false memories when they go through traumatic situations." But Sarah, the paramedic examining Mia, noted that the girl seemed mentally lucid and her accounts were consistent. There were no signs of disorientation or mental confusion to justify the father's explanation. "Mia," the paramedic said gently, "can you tell me exactly what happened? From the beginning?" Robert tried to step forward to interfere, but again, the horses blocked his path. The black stallion let out a low, threatening neigh, making Robert back away involuntarily. Mia began to recount her version of events, describing in detail how her father had taken her to the cliff's edge and then, but before she could finish, Robert interrupted again, claiming they needed to get the girl to the hospital immediately. The police officers present exchanged meaningful glances. Something was definitely not right with this story. At St. Vincent's Hospital, Mia was being thoroughly examined by a medical team while Robert waited impatiently outside. The girl had been surprisingly resilient during her 3 days on the cliff, presenting with only mild dehydration, a few scratches and a cut on her forehead that was already healing well. Sarah, who had accompanied Mia throughout the rescue, couldn't stop thinking about the inconsistencies in the story. She had requested the presence of a child psychologist, Dr. Helen Carter, to speak with the girl in a more private setting. "Mia," Dr. Carter said gently, sitting beside the bed, "do you want to tell me about your outing with Daddy? You can tell me everything you remember. Take your time." Mia glanced at the door, checking that her father wasn't nearby, then whispered, "Do you promise you won't tell Daddy? I'm afraid he'll get mad at me." That response immediately raised a red flag in the psychologist's mind. "Why would you be afraid of your daddy, sweetie?" "Because I think he pushed me on purpose," Mia admitted, tears beginning to stream down her face. "But I don't know why. I've always been a good girl. I always did what he and Aunt Victoria told me to." Dr. Carter felt a chill run down her spine. Victoria, who was this person Mia mentioned so casually? "Who is Aunt Victoria, Mia?" "Daddy's girlfriend. She's going to marry him and be my new mommy. But she doesn't like me very much. She always says I'm too much trouble because of my wheelchair." Every word from Mia painted an increasingly disturbing picture. Dr. Carter continued to ask careful questions, allowing the girl to tell her story without pressure. The account that emerged was consistent and detailed. Robert had taken Mia to the cliff, pushed her wheelchair to the edge of the precipice, and then had pushed her over. Meanwhile, outside, Robert was on the phone with Victoria. "She's alive," he said in a low voice. "They found her on the cliff." "What do you mean they found her?" Victoria shot back, her voice laced with irritation. "Didn't you say you had solved the problem?" "I thought I had, but she survived the fall and was stuck on a ledge. Now she's at the hospital being examined." "And what is she telling the doctors?" Robert felt cold sweat on his brow. "I don't know yet. They won't let me in the room, but she's a kid, right? Who's going to believe a traumatized child's story over the word of a respected businessman?" Victoria sighed impatiently. "Robert, you need to get this under control. We have a wedding next month, and my father still hasn't transferred the inheritance. If there's any kind of scandal..." The call was cut short when a police officer approached Robert. "Mr. Miller, Sheriff Brody would like to speak with you. Just a few routine questions about your daughter's disappearance." Robert swallowed hard. "Of course, officer. Anything to help clear this up." At the station, Sheriff Brody, an experienced man in his 50s, had gathered all available information on the case. He had spoken with John, the truck driver who found Mia, with the firefighters who participated in the rescue, and now he had the preliminary report from the hospital psychologist. "Mr. Miller," the sheriff began, "your daughter has made some statements that concern us. She claims that you intentionally took her to the cliff and then pushed her." "Sheriff, with all due respect," Robert replied, trying to maintain his composure, "my daughter has been through a terrible trauma. Children often create fantasies to explain situations they can't comprehend. She must be confusing nightmares with reality." "I understand your position," the sheriff said, "but I have to investigate all possibilities. Would you mind accompanying us to the location where you claim your daughter disappeared?" Robert felt panic rise in his chest. The location he had initially indicated was 10 miles from the cliff where Mia was found. How would he explain that discrepancy? "Of course," he said, trying to buy time. "But as I said, I looked for her in several places. It's possible she walked or rolled a long way before falling off the cliff." The sheriff made a few notes, but his expression showed growing skepticism. A wheelchair covering 10 miles of rough terrain unassisted? That seems unlikely, don't you think? While Robert struggled to maintain his story back at the hospital, Mia was telling Dr. Carter about the horses that had protected her. "They're very smart, Doctor. Whenever I tapped the rocks, they would answer, and when Daddy tried to get close, they wouldn't let him." "The horses wouldn't let your father get close?" the psychologist asked, making an important note. "No, it was like they knew he did something bad to me. They protected me the whole time I was down there." Dr. Carter was forming a clear picture of what had happened. Mia's account was too detailed to be a fantasy, and the horse's reaction, confirmed by multiple witnesses, suggested the animals had witnessed something that made them identify Robert as a threat. She picked up the phone and called Sheriff Brody directly. "Sheriff, I need to speak with you urgently about the Mia Miller case. I believe we are dealing with an attempted murder." The discovery that would completely change the course of the investigation came unexpectedly. Eleanor Hayes, a 70-year-old woman who lived on a small rural property near the cliff, showed up at the sheriff's station carrying an old cassette tape and a portable recorder that still worked. "Sheriff," she said in a firm voice, "I heard on the radio about the little girl found at Devil's Ridge. I need to show you something." Sheriff Brody received her personally, intrigued by the elderly woman's determination. Mrs. Hayes explained that she had a habit of recording nature sounds on her property, especially bird songs and the sounds of wild animals. It was a hobby she'd had for decades. "The day the girl disappeared," she continued, "I was recording the morning sounds when I heard something very strange coming from the direction of the cliff. Human screams, but not playful screams. They were screams of terror." The sheriff's heart sped up. "You recorded these screams?" "Yes, and there's more. After the screams, I heard a man's voice shouting some words. I kept the tape because something bothered me about it, but I didn't know what to do with it." And Mrs. Hayes put the tape in the recorder and pressed play. First came the normal sounds of nature: wind, birds, rustling leaves. Then, clearly audible through the old equipment, echoed the terrifying scream of a child. "Daddy! Help! Help me!" Sheriff Brody felt a shiver run down his spine. But what came next was even more damning. The unmistakable voice of an adult man shouting, "Mia! Daddy's looking for you." But the tone wasn't one of genuine desperation. It was theatrical, as if he were performing for an audience. "My God," the sheriff muttered. "This is proof he knew exactly where she was, but he was pretending to look." "Oh, for her," Mrs. Hayes nodded grimly. "And there's one more thing, Sheriff. After the screaming stopped, I heard the sound of an engine, a car speeding away. If the father was really desperately looking for his daughter, why would he leave so quickly?" Armed with this crucial evidence, Sheriff Brody immediately ordered, A detailed search of the exact location where Mia had been found. The forensics team discovered male footprints matching the size of Robert's shoe, as well as tire tracks that matched his car. More importantly, they found fragments of Mia's wheelchair scattered in the area, including a small identification plate with her name engraved on it. It was impossible for this debris to have gotten there by accident. As the evidence mounted, Robert was at home trying to convince Victoria that everything would be fine. "It's their word against mine," he said, pouring himself a whiskey with trembling hands. "I'm a respected businessman. I have influence, contacts. This will all blow over." Victoria, however, was beginning to question if she had aligned herself with the right man. "Robert, if they find out you really did this, my reputation will be ruined. My father will never forgive me for the scandal." "They won't find out anything," Robert insisted. "The girl is traumatized. A confused old woman has a decades-old recording. What real evidence do they have?" The answer to that question came in the form of a sharp knock on the door. Sheriff Brody stood outside with an arrest warrant and 3 deputies. "Robert Miller, you are under arrest on suspicion of the attempted murder of your daughter, Mia Miller." Robert tried to remain composed, but his legs nearly gave out. "This is absurd. You have no evidence. We have the recording of your daughter's screams and your voice pretending to look for her," the sheriff said calmly. "We have your footprints at the exact location where she was found. We have fragments of her wheelchair. And we have the detailed and consistent testimony of the victim herself." Victoria watched in shock as Robert was handcuffed. Her calculating mind was already working through the implications for her own life. She couldn't marry a man accused of trying to murder his own child. Her social standing, her plans, everything was collapsing. "Robert," she said coldly, "our engagement is off. I don't want to see you again." Robert looked at her in desperation. "Victoria, wait. I did this. For you, for us. You said you didn't want the girl. I never told you to kill her," Victoria screamed, horrified. "I thought you'd just send her to a boarding school or something. You're a monster." As Robert was led away by the police, his last words were a desperate plea. "I did this for love, for our future. Victoria, don't abandon me." But Victoria had already turned and shut the door, forever severing ties with the man who had destroyed his own life in the name of blind greed. In the hospital, Mia was sleeping peacefully, protected by caring nurses, and finally free from the father who had tried to take her life. Outside, the horses that had protected her continued to graze peacefully in the valley, as if they knew that justice was finally being served. The truth had prevailed. But Mia's journey was just beginning. The arrest of Robert Miller caused a scandal that reverberated throughout the city. Newspapers ran shocking headlines about the millionaire entrepreneur who had tried to murder his own disabled daughter. But for Mia, hospitalized under special care, the news brought a complex mix of relief and profound sadness. "Why did Daddy do that to me?" she asked Dr. Carter during one of their daily sessions. "I always tried to be a good girl. I always did everything he told me to." Dr. Carter, with her years of experience dealing with childhood trauma, chose her words carefully. "Mia, what your father did had nothing to do with you being good or bad. Sometimes grown-ups make very bad choices when they're confused or scared. It's never the child's fault." As Mia struggled to process her father's betrayal, an unexpected discovery was being made in the investigation. The case's social worker, Patricia Wallace, had found disturbing documents in Robert's office during the court-ordered police search. Among the seized papers was a $2 million life insurance policy on Mia, signed just 3 months before the accident. Even more shocking was a series of emails exchanged between Robert and Victoria, openly discussing how Mia's presence hindered their plans for marriage and social climbing. "Look at this," Patricia said to Sheriff Brody, showing him a particularly Incriminating email. Victoria wrote, "Robert, my father has made it clear there will be no inheritance if we keep this problem child in the family. Find a permanent solution." Sheriff Brody felt sick to his stomach as he read the messages. This shows clear premeditation. It wasn't an impulsive act. It was a calculated plan to get rid of the girl. As evidence mounted against Robert, Asa, parallel investigation was revealing surprising aspects about the horses that had protected Mia. Dr. Edward Cole, a veterinarian specializing in animal behavior, had been called in to study the phenomenon. "It's extraordinary," Dr. Cole reported, to a team of biologists and psychologists. "This herd has demonstrated a level of collective intelligence and protective behavior that challenges our conventional understanding of wild animals." He had spent days observing the horses, who still remained in the glyph area even after Mia's rescue. They established patterns of surveillance, coordinated communication, and demonstrated an ability to distinguish between threat and protection in a way that suggests an almost human-like understanding of the situation. John, the truck driver who discovered Mia, became a central figure in the animal behavior investigation. "Doc," he told Dr. Cole, "I've been driving these roads for 40 years. I know all the animals in this region. I've never seen horses act like this. It was like they knew the girl was in real danger." Dr. Cole meticulously documented the herd's behavior. When the father approached, the horses showed specific agitation. When other people arrived, they remained alert but not hostile. This suggests they associated the father's scent and presence with the girl's trauma. At the hospital, Mia was receiving visitors who wanted to help her. Her story had touched the hearts of many in the city. A woman named Mary, who volunteered at the hospital, brought storybooks and toys. A teacher named Mr. Thompson, who taught special needs children, offered to continue Mia's education. But the most special visit came when Dr. Cole got permission to bring Hope, the light brown mare, who had stayed closest to Mia during her days on the cliff. The meeting was carefully planned in the hospital garden, with medical and veterinary supervision. "Hope!" Mia cried with joy when she saw the mare approaching. "You came to visit me!" The mare gently approached Mia's new wheelchair and lowered her head, allowing the girl to stroke her. It was a moment of reconnection that moved everyone present. Mia and Hope had shared a unique experience of survival and mutual protection. "She protected me when I needed it most," Mia said, kissing Hope's muzzle. "She and all the other horses were my family when I had no one." Dr. Cole watched the interaction with a mix of scientific fascination and emotion. This connection goes beyond what we normally document between humans and animals. It's as if they formed a bond based on a shared experience of trauma and recovery. Meanwhile, in jail, Robert was facing the reality of his actions, isolated in a cell. Without the fortune that had always protected him, he had far too much time to think. The images of Mia screaming for help replayed constantly in his mind. For the first time in years, he was forced to confront the monster he had become. Victoria, for her part, had hastily left town after the scandal. Her reputation was ruined, and her father had cut all ties with her after discovering her involvement in the plot against Mia. The inheritance she so coveted was lost forever. At the hospital, Mia was starting to talk about her future. "Dr. Carter," she asked during a session, "what's going to happen to me now? Where will I live?" It was a question the entire medical and legal team was working to answer in the best way possible. The answer to Mia's future came from an unexpected source. Anna and Carl Jenkins, a couple in their 50s who had followed the story in the news, showed up at the hospital asking to meet the girl. Anna was an occupational therapist, specializing in child rehabilitation, and Carl was a veterinarian, coincidentally a colleague of Dr. Edward Cole. "We don't have any biological children," Anna explained to Patricia Wallace, the social worker. "We tried for years, but it wasn't meant to be. We've always dreamed of adopting a child who truly needed a loving family." Carl added, "When we heard Mia's story and about the horses that protected her, we felt it was more than a coincidence. I've worked with animals for 30 years, and I know they don't show that kind of protective behavior without reason. This girl has something special." The adoption process would be long and complex, but Patricia Wallace was impressed by the couple's sincerity and preparation. They had studied about caring for children in wheelchairs, adapted their home with ramps and special equipment, and showed genuine love and concern for Mia's well-being. Anna and Carl's first visit to the hospital was carefully supervised. Mia, still wary of adults after her father's betrayal, watched them with cautious curiosity. "Hi, Mia," Anna said gently, sitting at the girl's eye level. "We're Anna and Carl. We came to meet you because we heard you're a very brave and special girl." "Is it true you take care of horses?" Mia asked Carl, her eyes shining with interest. "Yes, I'm a veterinarian. I take care of horses, dogs, cats, and other animals. In fact, I work with Dr. Cole, who's studying your horsey friends from the cliff." Mia smiled for the first time since the rescue. "They're so smart. Hope is the sweetest, and the black stallion is the leader who protects everyone." Anna and Carl exchanged emotional glances. Mia's connection with animals was evident, and they saw in her a resilient child who deserved all the love in the world. Over the following weeks, the visits became more frequent and longer. Anna brought books about horses and taught Mia about different breeds and equine behaviors. Carl told stories about his animal patients and promised that when Mia left the hospital, she could visit his veterinary clinic. "Do you really want to adopt me?" Mia asked one day, her voice a mix of hope and fear. "Even with the wheelchair? Even if I'm a lot of trouble?" Anna took Mia's small hands in hers. "Mia, honey, you're not trouble. You are a blessing. Any family would be lucky to have a girl as brave and caring as you." "And about the wheelchair," Carl added, "our house is all ready for you. We have ramps, a special room, and even a garden where you can play and maybe have Hope come visit." Mia started to cry, but they were tears of relief and happiness. For the first time since her mother's death, she felt she could have a real family, people who would love her exactly as she was. As the adoption process moved forward, Robert was facing his trial. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Eleanor Hayes's recording, the emails with Victoria, the fraudulent life insurance policy, and Mia's detailed testimony. His lawyer tried to argue temporary insanity, but the jury was not convinced. "Robert Miller," the judge said during sentencing, "you betrayed your daughter's trust in the most cruel way possible, a child who loved you unconditionally. For the attempted first-degree murder of a minor, I sentence you to 20 years in prison." Robert collapsed in the defendant's chair. 20 years. Mia would be a grown woman when he got out. He had lost everything: his daughter, his fortune, his freedom, and most importantly, the chance to be the father Mia deserved. The same week, as the sentencing, the final approval for Mia's adoption by the Jenkinses came through. Anna and Carl were ecstatic, and Mia could barely contain her excitement. "Now I have a new mommy and a new daddy," she told Dr. Carter during her last session at the hospital. "And they like my horses. We're going to visit them all the time." Dr. Carter smiled, seeing the incredible transformation in the girl. "Mia, you are showing the whole world what it means to be truly strong. Your new family is very lucky." The day of her discharge from the hospital, a special surprise was waiting for Mia. Dr. Cole had arranged for the entire herd of Mustangs to be present in the valley near the hospital. When Mia came out in her new chair, pushed lovingly by Anna, she saw her protectors grazing peacefully. "Hope!" she yelled, waving enthusiastically. The mare lifted her head and approached the fence, followed by the other horses. It was as if they had come to say goodbye and give their blessing for the new chapter in Mia's life. Carl filmed the moment his new daughter communicated one last time with the animals that had saved her life. It was the beginning of a new journey, filled with love, protection, and true hope. 3 months after leaving the hospital, Mia was thriving in her new home with Anna and Carl. The Jenkins residence had been transformed into a true adapted paradise for her. Smooth ramps connected every room, the bathroom had special equipment, and the large garden allowed her to move freely in her wheelchair. But the most significant change in Mia's life wasn't physical, it was emotional. For the first time since her mother's death, she felt truly loved and secure. Anna and Carl didn't see her as a burden or an imperfection, but as a precious daughter who had enriched their lives in unimaginable ways. "Mama Anna," Mia said during breakfast, "can I help you take care of the plants today?" Anna's heart warmed at how naturally Mia had started calling her Mama. "Of course, my love. You have a special green thumb. The plants grow better when you talk to them." It was true. Mia had developed a special connection, not just with horses, but with all forms of life. The plants she tended to seemed more vibrant, and the animals that visited Carl's clinic always calmed down in her presence. Dr. Cole continued to study the phenomenon of the horses that had protected Mia. His research was being published in international scientific journals, bringing worldwide recognition to the unique bond between the girl and the animals. "Mia has an almost supernatural ability to communicate with animals," he explained to a team of journalists. "During my studies, I've documented at least 15 different species responding positively to her presence. It's as if she speaks a universal language of compassion." The fame of the story had spread far beyond the city. Letters of support arrived from all over the country, and several animal protection organizations invited Mia to be their ambassador. Anna and Carl were careful to protect their daughter's privacy, but allowed her to participate in events that genuinely interested her. The most exciting moment came when the county announced the creation of the Mia Jenkins Sanctuary, a special reserve where the horses that had protected her could live freely, protected by law. Mia would be the sanctuary's honorary guardian, with regular visits guaranteed. "For real?" she asked with shining eyes when Carl told her the news. "The horses are going to have a special home just for them." "That's right, Princess," Carl replied, "and you can visit them whenever you want. They were your heroes, and now they'll be protected forever." The sanctuary's inauguration was an event that mobilized the entire community. Mia, wearing a light blue dress that Anna had sewn especially for the occasion, cut the ribbon accompanied by Hope, who had become her official companion. During the ceremony, Mia gave a short speech that moved everyone present. "When I was alone and scared on the cliff, the horses showed me that we're never really alone when there's love around us. They taught me that family isn't just who you're born with, but who chooses to stand by your side when you need them." In the crowd, Eleanor Hayes, the woman who had recorded the crucial evidence against Robert, wept with emotion. John, the truck driver who discovered Mia, was there with his wife and children. Dr. Cole was filming everything for his scientific archives. It was a celebration not just of the horses, but of the human capacity to recover and turn tragedy into triumph. That night at home, Mia was lying in bed talking to Anna about the special day. "Mama, do you think my birth father is watching the news in prison?" Anna chose her words carefully. "Maybe, honey. And if he is, I'm sure he's seeing what an incredible girl you've become, in spite of everything that happened." "I still get sad sometimes," Mia admitted. "I don't understand why he couldn't love me the way I am." "Mia," Anna said, holding her daughter's hand, "sometimes grown-ups get lost and make terrible choices. But it was never about you not being worthy of love. You have always been perfect, exactly as you are." Mia smiled and hugged Anna. "Now I know what it's like to have a real family. Daddy Carl even taught me how to give medicine to the horses. I'm going to be a veterinarian when I grow up." Anna kissed her daughter's forehead. "You can be anything you want to be, my love. The world is full of possibilities for brave girls like you." As Mia fell asleep, Anna looked out the window toward the valley where the sanctuary was located. Even in the darkness, she knew the horses were there, grazing peacefully under the stars, forever protected as a symbol of hope and redemption. 6 months after the sanctuary's inauguration, Mia received a letter that deeply unsettled her. Robert had written to her from prison, asking for forgiveness and begging for a visit. Anna and Carl, along with Dr. Carter, carefully discussed whether it would be healthy for Mia to face the father who had tried to kill her. "I want to go," Mia said after reading the letter several times. "I need to understand why he did that to me, and I need him to know that I'm okay, in spite of him." Dr. Carter, who continued to see Mia for monthly sessions, supported the decision. "Mia has shown remarkable emotional maturity. I believe this meeting, if well prepared, could be an important part of her healing." The prison visit was scheduled for a Saturday morning. Anna and Carl accompanied Mia, who was nervous but determined. During the hour-long drive to the correctional facility, she mentally rehearsed what she wanted to say to Robert. "Remember, sweetie," Anna said, holding Mia's hand, "you don't have to forgive him if you don't want to. And you can leave the moment you feel uncomfortable." "I know, Mama," Mia replied, "but the horses taught me that sometimes we have to face our fears to get stronger." The prison was a gray, oppressive place, so different from the colorful, vibrant world Mia now knew. When Robert entered the visiting room, Mia was shocked by his appearance. The man who had once been a well-dressed, confident entrepreneur now looked aged, thin, and broken. Robert sat on the other side of the glass partition, his hands trembling as he saw the daughter he had tried to destroy. Mia was beautiful and healthy, radiating an inner strength he had never noticed before. "Mia," he said in a hoarse voice, "you came. I didn't think you would." "Hi, Dad," Mia replied calmly. "I came because I have things to tell you." Robert began to cry. "Mia, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I don't know how I could have done that to you. You are my daughter. I loved you." "If you loved me," Mia interrupted with a maturity that surprised even Anna and Carl, "why did you try to kill me?" The direct question made Robert flinch. For months in prison, he had pondered that very question. "I got lost, Mia. Greed, pride, the desire for a perfect life. I started to see you as an obstacle instead of my precious daughter. Did Victoria tell you that you needed to get rid of me?" Robert nodded, ashamed. "She said I had to choose between you and our future together, and God forgive me, I chose wrong." Mia was silent for a few seconds, processing his answer. "Dad, I want you to know something. When I was on that cliff, alone and scared, I still loved you. Even after you pushed me, a part of me still hoped you would come back to save me." Those words were like daggers in Robert's heart. "Mia, please, forgive me. I know I don't deserve it, but—" "I forgive you," Mia said simply. "Not because you deserve it, but because holding on to anger is hurting me. I've learned that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or accepting what you did. It means I'm not going to let your bad choices control my life." Robert was in shock. The 6-year-old daughter he had tried to kill had become a wiser, stronger person than he would ever be. "But," Mia continued, "I want you to know that I have a real family now. I have a Mama Anna and a Daddy Carl who love me exactly as I am. I have a new wheelchair, a house full of love, and I take care of the horses at the sanctuary." Horses? Robert asked, confused. The horses that protected me after you left. They stayed with me for 3 days, giving me strength and hope. Now they have a special sanctuary, and I'm the honorary guardian. Robert realized that even wild animals had shown more love and protection for Mia than he had. The irony was devastating. Mia, he said, trying to control his sobbing, you've become an incredible person, better than I ever dreamed of being. Thanks, Dad. I hope you use these years in prison to become a better person too, not for me, but for yourself. Mia stood to leave, but stopped and turned one last time. Dad, I'm going to have a wonderful life. I'm going to study, maybe become a vet, and take care of animals that need help. I'm going to prove that a girl in a wheelchair can do amazing things. I know you will, Robert whispered. I always knew. I'm just sorry it took me so long to see it. When Mia left the prison with Anna and Carl, she felt as though a huge weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She had faced her greatest demon and emerged stronger than before. 1 year after the rescue, Mia faced her greatest emotional challenge. The town had organized a special ceremony on the first anniversary of the sanctuary's creation, and Mia had been invited to give the keynote speech. But this time, it would be at the exact spot where it had all happened, at the top of Devil's Ridge. I don't know if I can go back there, Mia confessed to Anna the night before the event. Every time I think about that place, I still feel scared. Anna hugged her daughter tenderly. Mia, you don't have to do this if you don't feel ready. No one will think any less of you, but I want to, Mia said, determined despite her visible fear. I want to show that place it has no more power over me. I want to turn the worst place of my life into a symbol of my strength. Carl, who had been listening, came closer. Princess, remember what you told me about the horses, that they taught you that sometimes we have to face our fears to get stronger. Mia nodded, taking a deep breath. It's true. Besides, I'll be with you too, and with my horses. I won't be alone like last time. On the morning of the ceremony, hundreds of people gathered on the cliff. Journalists from several states had come to cover the event. Dr. Cole was present with his research team. Mrs. Hayes, now 81, had insisted on attending, leaning on her cane. John, the truck driver, brought his whole family. When Mia arrived, in her wheelchair, accompanied by Anna and Carl, a respectful silence fell over the crowd. The courage it took for her to be there, at the very place where she had faced the deepest possible betrayal, was palpable. The sanctuary horses were grazing nearby, and when they saw Mia, Hope immediately trotted over. The mare stood beside Mia's wheelchair, as if offering moral support for the difficult moment. Thank you for coming, Mia began, her voice trembling but firm. Exactly 1 year ago, I was in this very spot, but I was alone, scared, and betrayed by the person I loved most in the world. Tears began to stream down the faces of many in the audience. Mia's courage in speaking so openly about her trauma was inspiring. My father brought me here, saying we were going on a special outing. I trusted him completely. I never imagined that someone who said they loved me could hurt me. When he pushed my chair over the precipice, I felt like my whole world had collapsed with me. Mia paused for a moment to breathe, stroking Hope to calm herself. Anna and Carl stood right behind her, radiating love and support. But you know what happened next? When I thought I was lost forever, that no one in the world cared about me, my four-legged heroes appeared. Mia gestured toward the horses. They stayed here with me for 3 days. They protected me. They gave me hope. They showed me that even when people let you down, there is always goodness in the world. The emotion in the crowd was tangible. Many were crying openly. I learned that family isn't who shares our blood, but who chooses to stand by our side when we need them. I learned that our strength doesn't come from our bodies, but from our hearts. I learned that we can turn our pain into power to help others. Mia looked directly at the abyss where she had fallen. This place was once the scene of my greatest nightmare. Today I choose to make it the symbol of my victory. I will no longer be afraid of you, she said, addressing the cliff. You couldn't destroy me. On the contrary, you made me stronger. The audience erupted in applause. Anna and Carl were crying with pride. Dr. Cole documented everything, knowing he was witnessing a historic moment of human resilience. I want to dedicate this sanctuary not only to the horses that saved me, Mia continued, but to all the children who have ever felt abandoned or rejected. I want you to know that you are precious, that you deserve love, and that there is always hope, even in the darkest moments. Mia turned to look one last time at the exact spot where she had fallen. Thank you for teaching me that I can survive anything. Thank you for showing me what I'm capable of. And thank you, she said, looking at Hope, for the four-legged angels God put in my path. When Mia finished her speech, she received a standing ovation that lasted for several minutes. She had transformed the site of her greatest tragedy into the stage for her greatest triumph. The cliff no longer held power over her. She had reclaimed her strength and her voice. 2 years after the rescue, the lives of everyone involved in the story had taken definitive turns. Mia, now 8 years old, was in the 3rd grade at an inclusive school, where her intelligence and sensitivity made her stand out among her peers. Her passion for animals had intensified, and she already demonstrated an impressive knowledge of veterinary science. Mama Anna, Mia said at dinner, my teacher said I can do a presentation on animal behavior for the school science fair. Can I talk about the sanctuary horses? Of course, my love, Anna replied, beaming with pride at her daughter's academic progress. Dr. Cole would be happy to help you with your research. Carl smiled, watching how Mia had grown into a confident, articulate child. Princess, how about we visit the sanctuary this weekend so you can observe the horses' behavior some more? Mia's adjustment to her new family had been complete and natural. Anna and Carl not only loved her unconditionally, but also encouraged her dreams and talents. The house had become a true home, filled with laughter, learning, and special moments. At the sanctuary, the horses had thrived under the dedicated care of the veterinary team. The original herd had grown with the arrival of other rescued horses, all living harmoniously under the wise leadership of the Black Stallion, whom Mia had named Guardian. Dr. Cole had published 3 scientific papers on the case, establishing Mia as a unique phenomenon in the literature on interspecies communication. Universities from around the world requested studies on her special ability to connect with animals. Mia has developed a form of communication that transcends the normal barriers between humans and animals, Dr. Cole explained at an international conference. Her case studies are revolutionizing our understanding of animal emotional intelligence and interspecies empathy. But Mia's impact went beyond academia. Her story had inspired the creation of a national foundation for the protection of vulnerable children. The Mia Hope Foundation had already helped hundreds of children find loving families and receive necessary care. Every child deserves to feel loved and protected, was the institution's slogan, inspired by Mia's own words. Robert, serving his sentence in prison, had become a completely different person. He participated in therapy groups, studied child psychology, and wrote regular letters to Mia, not repeatedly asking for forgiveness, but sharing his personal growth and expressing pride in her successes. Dear Mia, one of his recent letters. I read in the paper about your science fair presentation. You won first place talking about horses. I'm so proud of the incredible woman you are becoming. Keep shining, my daughter. Mia read the letters with Anna and Carl and had developed a healthy relationship with the memory of her birth father. She no longer felt anger or fear, only a quiet sadness that he had gotten so lost that he had nearly destroyed everything. Victoria had completely disappeared from public life after the scandal. Some said she had moved to another country, others that she had married a wealthy man in a different state. Mia rarely thought of her, considering her only a part of a painful past that no longer had power over her. Present. The big revelation came on Mia's 8th birthday. Anna and Carl had prepared a special party at the sanctuary with all her friends, teachers, and the people who had been part of her recovery journey. Mia, Anna said during the birthday speech, "You came into our lives as an unexpected gift. We thought we were going to teach you about love and family, but in truth, it was you who taught us about courage, forgiveness, and true strength." Carl added, "You showed us that real heroes aren't movie characters, but people like you who turn pain into hope and trauma into triumph." During the party, Mia made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I want you all to know that I've officially decided I'm going to be a veterinarian when I grow up. But I'm not just going to take care of horses. I want to create a special hospital where children who have gone through trauma can heal alongside animals that also need care." The idea was revolutionary and touching. Mia had found her calling, to use her special connection with animals to help other children recover from traumatic experiences. "It will be a place where kids and animals heal together," she explained with enthusiasm, "because I learned that sometimes animals understand our pain better than people do." Dr. Cole was fascinated by the concept. "Mia, that's animal-assisted, a therapy on a whole new level. You're proposing something that could revolutionize both veterinary medicine and child psychology." Hope nuzzled up to Mia during the announcement, as if approving of her future plans. The bond between them had become legendary, a symbol of a friendship that transcended species and circumstances. That night, Mia was in her room talking with Anna before bed. "Mama, do you think everything that happened to me had a purpose?" Anna thought carefully about her answer. "Mia, I don't believe you deserved to go through that suffering, but I believe you had the courage and wisdom to turn something terrible into something beautiful. That's a very rare gift." Mia smiled, satisfied with the answer. "So maybe it was all worth it. Now I have you, I have the horses, and I know exactly what I want to do with my life." As she drifted off to sleep, Mia dreamed of the future. A place where wounded children and abandoned animals would heal together, where pain would be transformed into hope, and where she would use everything she had learned to make a difference in the world. 5 years had passed since that terrible day on the cliff. Mia, now 11, stood on the stage in a state-of-the-art motorized wheelchair, speaking at the grand opening of the Mia and Hope Healing Center, the nation's first veterinary hospital specializing in animal-assisted therapy for traumatized children. The complex, built on land donated by the county, was a dream come true. Modern pavilions housed both veterinary clinics and therapy rooms, connected by gardens where children and animals coexisted harmoniously. The heart of the complex was a miniature replica of the original sanctuary, where the horses that had saved Mia grazed freely. "When I was 6 years old," Mia began, her clear, confident voice echoing through the speakers, "I learned that sometimes the people we trust most can let us down in the deepest way. But I also learned that when one door closes, life has a mysterious way of opening unexpected windows." In the audience, Anna and Carl watched with tears of pride. Beside them, Dr. Cole documented another milestone in Mia's extraordinary journey. Mrs. Hayes, now 85, was in the front row, leaning on her cane and smiling with maternal satisfaction. "This center is not just a hospital," Mia continued. "It's proof that our scars can become our strength. Every animal we care for here will be a teacher of resilience, Every child who walks through these doors will learn that they can survive any storm. John, the truck driver who had discovered her, was there with his grandchildren, whispering to them about how he had found a brave little girl who became a national inspiration. Mia's story was now part of the school curriculum in several cities, teaching children about resilience, forgiveness, and inner strength. The most emotional moment of the ceremony came when Hope, now a mature 15-year-old mare, approached the stage. Mia came down from the platform and hugged her old friend, whispering words of gratitude that only the two of them could fully understand. "Hope was my first teacher of unconditional love," Mia said, stroking the mare's neck. "She taught me that family is chosen, not inherited, that protection comes from the heart, not from blood, and that sometimes angels come disguised as wild animals." Dr. Cole approached the microphone to make the final announcement. "It is with great honor that I inform you that Mia Jenkins, at 11 years of age, has just been awarded a full scholarship to the State University's veterinary program. Under a special provision for exceptional students, she will be the youngest veterinary student in the country's history." The crowd exploded in applause. Mia had broken every barrier and prejudice, proving that physical limitations do not define human potential. That night, the Jenkins family celebrated at home with a special dinner. Mia was beaming, flipping through the first veterinary textbooks Dr. Cole had given her as a gift. "Mia," Carl said, "remember when you were little and you used to ask why bad things happen to good people?" "I remember, Daddy. Do you have the answer now?" Mia thought for a moment, looking through the window toward the illuminated sanctuary in the distance. "I think bad things sometimes happen to prepare us to do extraordinary things. Every bit of pain I felt made me stronger to help other people." Anna hugged her daughter. "Mia, you have transformed the worst possible experience into the world's greatest strength. That is a miracle." "It wasn't a miracle, Mama. It was a choice. Every day I choose to turn my pain into power to help others. Every day I choose to see hope instead of despair." That same night, 250 miles away, Robert read a newspaper article in his cell about the center's inauguration. Tears streamed down his face as he absorbed every word about the successes of the daughter he had tried to destroy. He had served 7 years of his sentence and had become a completely different man. He dedicated his time in prison to studying child psychology and writing a book about the dangers of greed and social pressure. His work would be published with all profits donated to the Mia Hope Foundation. "My daughter has become everything I could never be," he wrote in his journal. "She is pure goodness, genuine strength, unconditional love. Perhaps my greatest legacy is that I failed so completely that she was forced to find her own light." Robert had requested to no longer receive visits from Mia, not because he didn't love her, but because he finally understood that the best gift he could give his daughter was to let her live free of his shadow. Mia, in turn, included her father in her prayers every night, wishing for him to find peace and redemption. She had transformed even that pain into compassion. In the sanctuary, under the starry sky, Guardian and the other horses grazed peacefully. They had become living legends, symbols that goodness exists in unexpected forms and that protection can come from the most unlikely of places. The herd had grown over the years, taking in horses rescued from abuse and neglect. Every animal that arrived there found not only shelter but purpose, participating in the therapy that helped children heal. Mia visited the sanctuary every afternoon after school, always accompanied by Anna or Carl. It was her place of meditation, where she planned how to use her veterinary studies to further expand the healing work. "One day," she told Hope during one of these visits, "we're going to have centers like this all over the world. Children who feel lost will find hope. Abandoned animals will find purpose. And together, everyone will learn that surviving isn't enough. You have to thrive." Hope neighed softly, as if approving her young friend's ambitious plans. When Mia got home that night, she found a special letter waiting for her. It was from a 7-year-old girl named Sophia, who had read her story and was writing to ask for advice on how to deal with being bullied at school for wearing a hearing aid. Mia smiled and picked up a pen and paper. She had a new friend to guide, a new life to touch, a new heart to fill with hope. "Dear Sophia," she began to write, "let me tell you about some very special horses who taught me that our difference isn't our weakness, it's our superpower." And so, the girl who had been pushed from a cliff for greed and prejudice continued to build bridges of hope, proving to the world that even the deepest falls can teach us how to fly. Mia's life was living proof that family is built with love, that strength is born from resilience, and that the greatest heroes sometimes come in small packages, ride in wheelchairs, and have hearts big enough to embrace the entire world.